The vision came on the 11th day of the 7th month, in the year when the world crossed the threshold it did not see coming. The day seemed ordinary, but it was not. For in the invisible realm the veil was lifted, and a vision was given. A vision not of dreams or symbols, but of the weighing of nations. A vision of the scales. And in that moment, heaven issued a declaration that echoed through eternity. You have been weighed in the balance, and you have been found wanting. The vision was not only for one nation, but for all who had been given the blessings of God, who had once known the light, walked in his ways, honored his covenant, but had now turned from it. The scales appeared, ancient and vast, suspended in the midst of darkness. On one side, the scrolls of righteousness, of mercy, of truth. On the other, the deeds of a people, their laws, their words, their secret thoughts. And the side of iniquity grew heavier, not because of one sin or another, but because of the accumulation, the layering, the compounding of rebellion, as if the land had become saturated with blood, pride, lust, and lies. And the voice said, you were given light. You were given my word. You were blessed and raised up, but now the blessings have turned to curses, because the covenant has been broken. The vision showed cities that had once lifted their towers to heaven, now desecrated by confusion and violence. It showed children lost in the wilderness of fan indoctrination. It showed leaders once entrusted to uphold justice, now enacting laws that strike down the very foundations of truth. It showed altars torn down and idols lifted high. It showed a nation in the mirror of ancient Israel, once chosen, once exalted, but now crumbling from within, and the scales tipped, slowly, almost imperceptibly, but undeniably. The weight of the nation's sins began to override of its past righteousness. The tipping was the turning point. It signified a shift not only in the natural, but in the spiritual. A judgment already underway, like a wall that is cracked but not yet fallen. The voice of the vision said, this day marks the moment when mercy will no longer be presumed, when what was tolerated will now be exposed, and what was hidden will now be revealed. July 11, 2025, the day the scales shifted. And when the balance was disturbed, the wind began to blow. It was a wind that came from the east, ancient and full of fire, and the wind moved upon the land. And with the wind came shaking. Institutions began to tremble. Markets convulsed. Alliances fractured. The ground that had seemed stable was no longer so. The vision revealed people searching for meaning, for answers, but finding only noise and confusion. For the voices of man had drowned out the voice of God. But now the voice would return, not in gentleness, but in the thunder of reality. The vision declared, you trusted in your own strength, in your wealth, in your military, in your technologies. But the day is coming when those will fail you, and you will know that I am the Lord. In the vision, I saw a great boopend in the heavens. It was the record of the covenant, the record of what had been given and what had been done. And the pages turned faster and faster, as if time were accelerating, for the time of warning was drawing to its end. The time of reckoning had come. And yet, even in the vision of judgment, there was a glimmer of hope. For in the midst of the darkness, I saw the remnant, a people not given to compromise, not seduced by the idols of the age, a people who had not bowed to Baal, who had not kissed the face of Moloch, had not sold their souls for comfort or gain. They were hidden in caves, unknown to the world, but known to heaven. And they wept. They wept not for themselves, but for they cried out, spare your people. O Lord, have mercy on the land of our fathers. And their cries were heard. And a voice said, for their sake, I will hold back the storm for a moment. But only for a moment. The vision spoke of windows, openings in time, where repentance could change the outcome, where prayer could reverse the decree, where humility could move the heart of God. But it would not come easy. For the vision also showed the pride of the people, how they had built tall towers into the sky and declared, we are the gods now. And because of that pride, the fall would be great. The pride would be broken. The knees would be bent. The high places would be brought low. And the name of the Lord would be lifted again. But through fire, what was once hidden would be exposed. The corruption would be laid bare. The media, the institutions, the powers that had ruled in secrecy would find themselves judged not by men, but by the God who sees all. And on the scales, truth would begin to rise again, but only through the crushing of idols, the breaking of false foundations. And when the dust had settled, only what was rooted in the word would remain. The vision was not only a warning, but a dividing. It marked a line, a separation of light and darkness, of wheat and tares, of sheep and goats. Those who would stand on the side of righteousness would have to do so openly, boldly, and without compromise. The days of lukewarm faith were over. The fire was coming, and it would purify or consume. July 11, 2025 would be remembered as the day of unveiling, the day when heaven said, the tipping point has come. Choose this day whom you will serve. It was not about fear, but about truth. Not about destruction, but about decision. The Lord was offering a vision not to condemn, but to call. A call to return. A call to wake, to rise. For even as judgment draws near, so too does redemption. The same God who weighed the nations also offers mercy to the humble. The same fire that consumes also refines. And the same voice that declares judgment also whispers, return to me and I will return to you. This was the vision given on that day. A vision not for the faint of heart, but for those who still believe that the God of the Scriptures is alive and active. For those who believe that he still speaks, still warns, still calls, and still redeems. The scales have tipped, but the window is not yet closed. There is still time to turn, but not much, for what is coming will change everything. And only those who stand on the rock will endure the shaking. And then the vision changed. The scales faded, and in their place appeared a gate. Not a gate of iron or stone, but something ancient, something alive, something not of this world. It stood tall and radiant, as if forged in the fires of eternity. It had inscriptions carved into it, languages not known to man, yet understood in the Spirit. The voice spoke again, saying, this is the gate of unveiling, the entrance to what has been hidden, the opening of what has long been sealed. What happens now will not only reveal, but will reverse. The vision revealed that history itself was being rewritten, not erased, but redirected. What man had built in defiance would begin to unravel, and what had been buried by lies would rise again in truth. July 11, 2025 was not only the day of the tipping scales, it was the day the gate began to open. And when it opened, it released a wind unlike the first. This wind was not of judgment, but of revelation. It swept across the land, not with fire, but with light. And wherever it touched, eyes began to open. Eyes that had been shut by deception, blinded by culture, clouded by rebellion, now began to see. Not just see the world, but see behind it. To see the spiritual battle that had long been raging in silence. The gate's opening initiated a divine reversal. That which had been exalted would be brought low. That which had been silenced would be given a voice. The forgotten would be remembered. The righteous who had been mocked would be honored. The truth that had been buried would rise like a sword. The vision showed the systems of man beginning to collapse under the weight of their own deception. It showed falsehoods long held as truth suddenly disintegrating like ash in the wind. The ideologies that had ruled over the hearts of nations were exposed, not only as lie but as spiritual chains forged by principalities and powers. And with the gate open, the chains began to break. I saw individuals waking up in the middle of the night, not knowing why they wept. I saw prodigals returning from the far lands. I saw pastors falling to their knees in repentance. I saw governments shaken not by elections or protest, but by the invisible hand of God removing their platforms and unmasking their agendas. The gate was the doorway of decision. The voice said, this is not only a shaking, but a summoning. I am summoning my people to step through this gate, to leave behind the things of Egypt, the compromise, the idols, the pride, the pleasure of Babylon, and to cross over into the calling I placed on them before they were born. For many, this gate was a terrifying thing. For those who had built their lives on sand, on performance, on politics, on power, it marked the end of the illusion. But for the remnant, it was liberation. For the faithful, it was vindication. For those who had waited, prayed, fasted, wept, it was the answer. The vision showed angels descending through the gate, messengers with scrolls, with flames, with swords, not to harm, but to anoint, to awaken, to appoint. For what was being reversed was not just earthly corruption, but heavenly delay. That which had been held back was now being released. That which had been resisted by the enemy would now be carried forth with power. I saw children receiving visions. I saw the elderly dancing in streets. I saw broken men lifting holy hands. I saw hardened skeptics fall to their knees with tears streaming down their faces. Not because of man's persuasion, but because the presence had returned. The glory that had departed was now hovering over the land like a pillar of fire, like the cloud in the wilderness. But not all welcomed it. Many raged against it. Many shouted from their platforms, from their newsrooms, from their institutions, saying, this is hate, this is extremism, this must be stopped. But they could not stop it, for it was not from man. It had come through the gate, and it carried the breath of heaven. The vision revealed that churches would split, not by scandal, but by spirit. Those who honored his name would walk in fire. Those who used his name in vanity would fall into dryness. The gate demanded purity. The gate demanded truth. The gate would not allow the lukewarm to pass through. And so the division began, a holy division, a separation of those who would stand for righteousness, even at the cost of their lives, and those who would bend to culture, who preserve their place. The Spirit said, I am calling forth my prophets, not the self-appointed, not the celebrated, but the hidden ones, the ones I formed in the womb for such a time as this. They will speak what I tell them, and the nations will tremble. Not all will listen, but those who do will live. The reversal would be costly. The idols of wealth would fall. The entertainment of corruption would collapse. The partnerships of evil would fracture. What was elevated by pride would be shattered by truth. But out of the ruins would rise a people, a remnant, a holy army, not with weapons of man, but with the word, the Spirit, and the glory of God upon them. The vision ended with one final image. I saw a massive crowd standing before the gate. Some looked back, unwilling to let go. Others clung to idols in their coats. Some wept in terror. But others, fewer but fearless, stepped forward. They stripped themselves of every weight, every sin, every distraction. They looked not to the right or the left, but into the fire within the gate. And they walked. As they crossed through, their faces changed, their garments glowed. And behind them the gate began to close. Not forever, but for a time. The voice said, "What is now open will not remain so. This is the hour, not tomorrow, not in another season. Now, those who wait will miss it. Those who hesitate will be left outside. But those who rise will be transformed." This is the crossing. This is the moment. This is the change. And then it ended. The vision faded, but the echo remained. July 11, 2025 was the day the gate opened. It was the day the world shifted. It was the day heaven said, "Enough." And the day God invited his people into a new beginning, a beginning born not of ease, but of obedience. The gate is open. The decision has been made. Everything has changed. Now you must decide, will you step through? Or will you stay behind? The moment is now. The call is real. The fire is coming. And the time to choose is today. The vision had one final unveiling. Beyond the scales, beyond the gate, there was something deeper, something that shook the soul, something not seen with the eyes, but known in the spirit. It was not a place or a time, but a confrontation, a divine encounter between God and man, a revelation of what had been hidden not only from the world, but from the hearts of his own people. It was as if heaven opened a window into eternity and said, "Now I will deal with my house." For the final part of the vision was not about the world. It was not about the government or the cities or the systems of man. It was about the sanctuary. It was about the altar. It was about those who claimed to know the Lord but had forsaken his ways. The voice came, not in thunder this time, but in sorrow, a trembling whisper that carried the weight of ages. "My people have forgotten me. They have honored me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They have sung songs to me, but they do not know my presence. They have built temples, but they have removed my glory. I am not found in their gatherings, because I was never invited to reign." And then the vision took me into a vast room, dimly lit, filled with shadows. There was a golden lampstand, but its flame was weak. There was a table of bread, but it was stale. And in the center, there was the ark, but it was covered in dust. A silence fell over the scene, and then I heard the words, "Ichabod." The glory had departed, not because God had left suddenly, but because he had been pushed away slowly, methodically, by convenience, by performance, by pride, by entertainment, by compromise. The altars were no longer sacred. They had become stages. The ministers no longer wept between the porch and the altar. They managed brands and built platforms. The prayers were hollow. The worship was noise. The word was diluted. And the spirit was grieved. The vision showed the church dressed in fine garments, but inwardly sick. The body was wounded. The hands were stained. The feet had wandered. And the heart beat faintly. It was a body in crisis. But heaven had not given up. For the voice said, "I will shake my house, that what is not of me will fall, and what is of me will stand." The shaking would begin from the top. Leaders exposed. Ministries brought low. Institutions dismantled. Everything that had been built in the name of God, but without the Spirit of God, would not survive what was coming. For judgment would begin not with the world, but with the house of the Lord. Then I saw a threshing floor. The winnowing fork was in his hand. The wheat and the chaff were together, but not for long. The Spirit moved through the sanctuary, and what was real began to shine, and what was false began to burn. The voice declared, "This is my refining. I am returning for a bride without spot or wrinkle. But first I must cleanse her garments." And so came the fire, not the fire of destruction, but the fire of purification. I saw gatherings where the people fell on their faces, not for blessing, but for mercy. I saw prophets who had been silent now roar like lions. I saw old altars rebuilt with tears. I saw pulpits emptied of pride and filled with truth. I saw the word preached with fire. I saw the fear of the Lord return. And the people trembled, not in terror, but in awe. The Spirit said, "What comes now will not be convenient. It will not be comfortable, but it will be glorious. For I will have a people who know me, not just in word, but in power." Then the vision showed a remnant within the remnant, a people within the people. Those who had been hidden in the caves of rejection, obscurity, and prayer. They had no name in the world, but their names were known in heaven. They had no platform, but they had authority. They had no popularity, but they had purity. And the Lord said, "These are my priests. These are my Levites. These are my watchmen. I have kept them for this hour." And he began to raise them up, not with human promotion, but with divine anointing. They would carry the fire of awakening. They would walk in holiness. They would not bend. They would not fear. They would speak the word of the Lord regardless of the cost. And signs would follow: healings, deliverance, salvations in the thousands. Not because of man, but because of the return of the presence. The glory was coming back, but only to a cleansed house. The lampstand would burn again, but only on the altar of sacrifice. The ark would be uncovered, but only when the people tore their garments, not their garments alone, but their hearts. Then I saw the sanctuary filled with light. It was no longer dim. The shadows had fled. The stale bread was replaced with fresh manna. The flame danced again, and the people were changed, not entertained, not appeased, but awakened. They stood, not in casual faith, but in covenant fire. Their eyes burned with vision. Their hands were lifted in surrender. Their feet were shod with the readiness of the gospel. They were the army of the Lord, not marching with swords of steel, but with the word of truth. They carried no flags but holiness, no banners but righteousness. And as they marched, darkness trembled, for they carried the glory. And wherever they went, captives were set free. Chains broke. Altars of Baal collapsed. Cities shook with revival. Nations bent their knees. But the vision warned this would not come without cost. Those who chose to follow the glory would be hated by the world. They would be slandered, mocked, censored, persecuted. Some would be imprisoned. Some would be martyred. But the Spirit said, "Do not fear, for I am with you, and what I will do through you the world cannot contain." The final words of the vision came not from the throne, but from the altar, from the place of sacrifice. They echoed like a trumpet through time: "Return to me, and I will return to you. Consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you." July 11, 2025 was not just a date, it was a summons, a line in the sand, a holy visitation, a divine exposure, and a chance to begin again, but only for those who would lay it all down. The time is now. The fire is real, and the glory is near. Let the house be made ready, for the King is coming, and this time he will not be denied.